What's up everyone? It's Emily and welcome back to my channel. You finished NaNoWriMo. Now what? First of all, congratulations. This is a huge feat. So many people dream about writing a book and very few, a small percentage of that group of people actually end up finishing a first draft of their novel. So even if you wrote 10,000 words, congratulations. That is an amazing step towards writing a novel. Obviously, the next step is going to kind of be determined by what your goals are for this piece of writing. If you are a writer because it is something that you love to do as a hobby, it's not something that you want to make money off of, maybe this is just the time where you kind of share it with your friends, maybe get some feedback from people to see how they like your writing, share it with people that are the closest to you. I don't know, just you can do whatever you want with it. You could put it online for people to read for free if that's something that you're passionate about, if you really want to share it, or you could just keep that for yourself and just be like, I made this thing, this is a story I wrote and I'm proud of this, and that's great, that's wonderful. I also, I'm a big fan of, I did this when I was editing my first full-length novel. I went, and I think it was through Staples or Office Max, I uploaded my whole story online to their thing and I had them print it out for me, and you can actually have them print it in a binding so that it's actually kind of looks like a book in a way. And I think Barnes & Noble might do something where it actually truly looks like a book. And then that way you can just hold it in your hands and be like, wow, I wrote this. I did this thing and now it's in my hands. And sometimes that is the most gratifying, fulfilling part of the entire writing process. Because when I finish my NaNoWriMo novel, that's not the end, I'm editing it. So I know for me, sometimes doing that really gets me excited again to continue working on my story. But honestly, just do whatever you want to do. If you're not doing this because you want it to be published by either yourself or a traditional publisher, holding it in your hands and just celebrating this win is enough. And I know that it's maybe late now, but it's never too late to celebrate you just being amazing. The rest of this video is going to be geared a little bit more towards the people where this is really their first draft and the book is not finished. And whether that's because you want to pursue traditional or self-publishing, whatever you plan on doing with your book, the next part of this is going to actually focus a lot more on the editing, revising next steps of your book. Because even though you have this first draft done, that doesn't mean that it's time to start querying agents and sending them your manuscript or anything like that. It's not time to hit the publish button necessarily, unless you write perfectly the first time, which I don't know if that's possible, but if you're the first person to do that, congratulations, that's incredible. So the biggest piece of advice that I can give about working towards the editing process of your book is to take a break from it. So if you haven't even touched or looked at your book since November, that's great. Taking a break from your book is going to be the first step in the editing process. And whether that's a week, 2 weeks, a month, maybe even 3 months, the thing is that you kind of want to forget what happens in your book a little bit. You really want to separate yourself from the story because you've spent this whole month or more in this world with these characters, in the battleground with them, right? Just slogging through everything, the plot, the characters, the arcs, everything. Now you need to take a break. You need to take a step back and kind of let your brain refresh. Go watch a movie that you love. Take a walk. Spend time with your kids. Go shopping. Whatever you need to do to get your brain out of writer mode for a while. Work on a different project even. If you're someone like me and you can't just sit still, work on something else. Take a genre shift. Read the thing that you've been putting off for months and months because of your writing. Just go do something else for a while and come back to your book with a completely fresh perspective, having forgot probably at least a little bit of what happened in your book. And I know that it seems like that's impossible because you spent so long with it and these characters and everything, but it is possible because I can tell you, I know what happens in my book, but I don't know how it happens in my book. And that's kind of where you want to be when you go back to reread it. This is also a great time if you have a critique partner, a writing partner, a trusted group of beta readers or alpha readers, or just friends, not super close friends who are going to be afraid to hurt your feelings about your writing, but people that you trust with your work. This is a good time to send it to them because it will force you to take a couple weeks away from your book while they read it and are giving you feedback on your writing. I will say this has been probably the most helpful part of my writing journey is I have this amazing, I now call her a friend. I have this amazing friend who's my new critique partner, and she and I send each other our books back and forth as we're working through it. She has amazing feedback, and I like that she kind of takes her time with it, and she really does a great job helping me through the things that I really find difficult with my story. And she has a fresh perspective and like in a way is kind of my target audience, like maybe not the niche of the target audience, but she's gonna be able to tell me like, this isn't coming off very well, or this is very emotionally dysregulated, you know, and she can point those things out because I'm in my book, you know, I'm so close to the material. I'm not going to be able to figure out those things for myself. I need someone else to tell me that. And she does such a great job doing that. I'm so thankful for her. If she watches this video, hi. I'm not going to like say her name or anything in case, because I'm not going to like put that out onto the internet, but you're amazing and I appreciate you so much. Okay, so you've taken a break from your book. You've gotten some feedback maybe from your beta readers or your writing partner. And now it is time for you to reread your book. Take some time, really clear your head, and probably be the hardest part is read your book with as little judgment as possible. Or if you're gonna read it with judgment, look at it objectively. So I have this really big issue where I reread my stuff and I cringe and I cry and I wanna delete the whole thing. That's all just part of the process. What you wanna do is you wanna reread your draft with maybe the feedback in mind, and take your own notes on your book. And I genuinely mean this, look at it as objectively as you can. So the minute that you start nitpicking your words or your verbiage, or you say, this sounds dumb, this is stupid, this is bad, those things need to leave your vocabulary like immediately, because you will never get through rereading your book. This is where I struggle the most. I have a really hard time rereading my work because I have a tendency to just think that I'm horrible, that I'm bad, untalented, you know, whatever you want to call yourself. Those are all horrible things. Save that for the haters on the internet. Don't say that to yourself. Like, that is not your place to when you're rereading your book for the first time, okay? Look at it objectively. Grab a notebook, take some notes, or, you know, if you read in Google Docs or Microsoft Word, take notes on the screen, right? Just like write things down. This scene, this didn't really give me the pack, the punch that I really wanted it to, or, you know, I think I need to add some more relationship deepening here in this scene, or I think I'm missing this context. If something feels weird in a scene, note that, and don't put any like emphasis on it other than this feels weird. And if you can identify why, that's even better. The dialogue here is awkward. Don't go back and change it right away. Just make a note of it. Just be like, this feels awkward, okay? And then you move on from it, and then you keep reading. Note places where you're really bored, and maybe think why you're really bored. Are you info dumping? Is this unimportant to the plot? Are you really dragging out the pacing and things are just really slogging through the mud right now? These are all just really, and don't place any blame on yourself and don't be mean to yourself about it. Just put it in there. This is kind of boring. You know, you have to be really good to yourself and like really honest with yourself about these things if you're gonna pursue this or continue to write and edit and self-edit particularly. So you need to be really good at looking at your work objectively, just taking notes and writing down why that's the case, and then going back and fixing it, because that's what this is all about. Also note anytime the pacing is really, really slow and like that's not on purpose. So if it's like really dragging, you know, we've been talking about, you know, getting ready to leave for 4 chapters now and we still haven't left yet, and what are we still doing here? Like, why haven't we left on our journey yet? Or, you know, anything like that. Mark those places. And also mark any times where maybe you're giving too much information, especially if you have like a twist coming up, you know, hopefully by now you know how your book is going to end. And so if you're rereading it, let's say you're writing a mystery, if you are rereading and in the beginning you mention something and you're like, oh, that totally gives away that twist, or that's just a little bit too much information, just mark those points as well, because now you'll be able to go back and layer in those pieces, but hopefully in a way that kind of disguises them or veils them from the reader so that you can still kind of pack that punch at the end of your book. These are all things that you should probably be asking your beta readers to do as well. And here's something of note. Every single person who reads your book is going to have a different opinion on it. Every person who reads your book, reads your words, they have an entire life story that we have no part of. They have experiences, emotions, you know, things that have happened to them that like we will never know or experience. And that is going to affect how they read your book. And so you need to keep that in mind when you receive feedback, because if you give your book to 10 people, more than likely, you're going to get 10 different responses back. Someone is going to say, this scene is really great. Another person is going to say, this scene was really boring and I hated it and you should delete it. And it's going to be up to you as the author at the end of the day whether or not that scene is important enough to stay in the book. You know, if one person says it was boring and unnecessary, is that enough to take it out? When, you know, other people think that it is super necessary and intriguing and interesting, you know, that's going to be up to you to determine. But a lot of the time, it can give you some really great insight about different things, and especially if you are writing about experiences outside of yourself. Beta readers are not a replacement for sensitivity readers. However, if you are writing experiences outside of your own, and even in the beta reading process, someone who has that life experience is telling you something that is really, really important, and I would mark that and be like, okay, I need to speak to someone else and more people who have a similar experience because I haven't had that. And this could be with gender, race, sexuality, even jobs. Like, you could really misrepresent someone's job if you don't know what you're writing about. You know, like, just all these things, just really keep that in mind. And then when you're rereading, really make notes of like the stakes, the core, the center of your book. What is at the middle of it all? Like, what is the point of this book, right? Do you have a moral that's being set here? I'm going to talk about Beauty and the Beast. It's my favorite movie, book, everything of all time. So, you know, the core message of that is like, first of all, that if you're mean and horrible, bad things will happen to you, but that also doesn't mean you can't change. And then also that you shouldn't judge people for the way that they look, because we have that whole, I mean, if we're talking about the Disney movie, you have the dichotomy of the Beast versus Gaston, where being beautiful and aesthetically pleasing doesn't necessarily make you a good person, and vice versa. So seeing beyond that into the goodness of the person within, you know, that's like the moral of it. That's not the story necessarily, but that's like the core of like what we're saying when we talk about that movie. Think about the impact or the message or whatever you want your reader to take away from it, because yes, we read books for entertainment, but there's always something more there, whether it's like self-discovery or coming into your own or all of those things. Like, just really think about that and then kind of juxtapose that with your book and make sure that that's the message that your book is conveying, if that makes sense, like that you're staying true to your intention. And then this is also the place to talk about and mark things about the romance, the stakes, the plot, anything that just seems wonky or weird, because these are going to be the things that like really make your book pieces of the puzzle just fit together perfectly. I'm gonna link a video down below by another amazing YouTube creator. Her name's Alexa Dunn. She has been traditionally published multiple times, I believe, and she has a really great resource and multiple videos on self-editing and editing in general. So I'm gonna link her video down below. She talks a lot about linear versus non-linear edits, which I had never even heard of before. So I'm gonna just let her talk about that because she is more of an expert in this field than I am. But basically, she just talks about different ways to edit and the kind of way that you should do it. So what she says at one point is to make a deadline for yourself. Now, this is something I really struggle with because I cannot enforce deadlines on myself if there is no external force. So like, if I knew that I needed to have edits in by the end of next week, I could totally do it. No problem. I will work on it 8 hours a day until it's done. But when it's just kind of like, it just needs to be done at some point and it's just me doing it, it will never happen. Or it will happen very slowly at a pace that I don't like. So make a deadline for yourself if you can. Have something there if you're like me, have something at the end of that deadline that is going to really push you to get there, if that makes sense. Whether that's like announcing something to your friends and being like, hey, I'm gonna finish editing my book by the end of September. And if that is gonna give you enough outside pressure to finish editing your book by the end of September, great, do that. You know, whatever you need to do. But just know that some revisions are going to take longer than others. My first novel that I'm currently editing right now is called Curse of the Midnight Sun. I had to go back and revise the core of my story. My characters, I changed them completely. I changed some of the stakes and I changed the lore of my world, which meant that after my first draft was done, I now am going back and basically revising and rewriting my entire book. I'm willing to do that because I believe in my story and I want it to be a certain way, and I am not going to settle for less with this book. So that is going to take a lot longer than, let's say, someone who just really needs some clarification. Some places maybe need to be edited a little bit, but like overall the story is like done. And then like copy edits and everything, those things don't take that long, maybe a couple weeks at most. But like for some pretty hefty character, plot, world revising, you can expect that to take a couple months because you're basically rewriting not from ground zero because you have this whole thing set up, but you're gonna be starting over in a lot of places. Be patient with yourself and just know that things do take time. And even if you go traditional publishing and they are sending you edits to do, that is also gonna take time. I mean, a lot of publishers right now, if you get a deal with them, your book might not come out for 2 years from when they accept your book into their publishing house. So these things just take time, and that's just kind of the long and short of it. And then, you know, for me, I like to edit on paper. I don't like editing so much on the computer, but unfortunately that's just kind of what I have to do right now. It's like hard on my eyes and I get really sleepy. Take notes. You can print out your book and put it in a binder, make like a glossary for yourself. I've seen people make these like amazing like book world binders. It's incredible. I wish I could do that. I wish I had the skill to do those kinds of things. If that's a way that you edit well, that's what I would do. You know, just kind of do what feels best for you and works best with your life. You know, a lot of people are working full-time or part-time, you know, or they have children, you know, they don't have the luxury to just be working on their book 24/7. Do what is best for you. Be consistent, kind of like make a schedule for yourself with editing. You're probably gonna end up reading your book like 10, 15 times. That's okay. But I think doing this first run of self-edits is going to be really important with your NaNoWriMo book if you plan on publishing this either through a traditional publisher or self-publishing. Self-edits are going to be really important, and it's just a skill that you kind of just need to acquire over time. I am still learning how to do this myself, and it's been a really hard time learning how to do it, but I've also been enjoying it in its own weird way. And of course, after you self-edit, you're probably going to edit again. I would send it again to beta readers or again a writing partner and just get some more feedback from them and see what they think. And then after that, you can look at hiring a professional editor, and the advice on this varies a lot, so take this as you will, but a lot of people suggest having your book go through a professional editor at least one time before you query it out, because the traditional publishing world right now is insanely competitive. There are only so many agents, they can only take on so many clients, and there are only so many publishers who can only publish so many books in a year. And if you want to traditionally publish your book, not always, because obviously there are some outliers to this rule that I'm not going to name on this video. There are lots of outside reasons why books might be picked up by publishers, but if you're going the traditional route, you're querying to agents and then you're querying your book to publishing houses, there's a million books that are trying to get published at any given second. And you want your book to stand out and be the best, cleanest version that it can be, so that when people read it, they're like, oh, yes, totally. I could see this in a book right now. Let's get to work. Let's get this published. And so a lot of people will suggest sending it through a professional editor at least one time. And I'm not saying spend $2,000 on a professional editor for this draft to go to an agent. Not necessarily, especially if that's not in the budget for you. And you could also just forego that part entirely. A lot of people just query their agents without ever having it touch a professional editor's hands even one time. That is also a really big suggestion that people give. And then of course, if you're going to self-publish, you don't have to, but it is always advised to go through at least one professional editor and have them work through some edits with you so that your book can be the best it can be, so that it does well on the market. Like, think about how many bad self-published books there are and how many great ones there are, and I would love to see a list of which ones have been professionally edited. And people are, I hear a lot of people on these like self-publishing groups on Facebook and stuff that are like, I am great at self-editing and I don't need an editor to look at my work because no one knows my work better than me. And it's like, that's kind of true, but also you are not going to look at your book the same way as someone else. Like, you need someone else to read your words to make sure that other people can even understand what you're writing in the first place. That's just me. You can take or leave that advice, because I know that the world is expensive, but when you sell a product, you want it to be amazing, right? So that's kind of what I have on that. If you would like more videos about editing or anything, just let me know down below, because I am more than willing to talk more about this as I continue to learn more and I continue to edit my own book and go through my own journey with my stories. I am more than willing to share that journey with you guys if that is something that you're interested in. So let me know down below your thoughts, and let me know what your plans are to do with your NaNoWriMo book. I'd love to hear from you all. It's been a while. If you're here, just say hey in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. As always, if you enjoyed this video and you would like to see more of my bookish and writing content, please feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out so much. Thank you as always for watching and for being here. I appreciate it so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I cannot wait to see you in the next one.